What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we are going to talk about Donald Trump's cabinet pick for Department of Labor. I tend to focus on the economics because I think that that's the most common item that we all face together. And his pick for Department of Labor, or Secretary of Labor, is one that I have to say is a surprising one for me. A cabinet that is full of billionaires for the most part. Here they pick the only one of three House Republicans that voted in favor of the PRO Act, which is a very strong union organizing bill. It was going to make it easier to have a union, to create a union, to be in a union, collectively bargain. It was going to create an easier pathway for that. And this is one of three House Republicans that voted in favor of it. Her name is Lori Chavez DeRemer, and that's who Trump picked. Now, surprisingly enough, the suggestion came from the Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, who was heavily criticized for speaking at the RNC. But if you remember, I did a review of his speech, and he actually brought a strong labor message to the Republican convention. And so he should be credited for that. And this is like a bone thrown to labor here. Now, I share that with cautious optimism because I'm always waiting for the rubber to meet the road. And what are the policies going to be? We do know that billionaires are against the NLRB and want to eradicate it. We do know that the billionaires are against the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, and they want to get rid of that as well. And if you don't know what those are, the NLRB is the referee between business and workers in labor issues, and the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau was fighting against banks who defrauded their customers. Let's dive into this article in the AP about Rep. Lori Chavez DeRemer and her pick for Department of Labor. So let's check it out. President-elect Donald Trump on Friday named Oregon Rep. Lori Chavez DeRemer to lead the Department of Labor in his second administration, elevating a Republican congresswoman who has strong support from unions in her district but lost re-election in November. Chavez DeRemer will have to be confirmed by the Senate, which will be under Republican control when Trump takes office in January 2025, and can formally send nominations to Capitol Hill. Here are things to know about the Labor Secretary designate, the agency she would lead if she wins Senate approval, and how she could matter to Trump's encore presidency. Chavez DeRemer has a pro-labor record that unions like. Chavez DeRemer is a one-term congresswoman, having lost re-election in her competitive Oregon district earlier this month, but in her short stint on Capitol Hill, she has established a clear record on workers' rights and organized labor issues that belie the Republican Party's usual alliances with business interests. She was an enthusiastic back of the PRO Act legislation that would make it easier to unionize on a federal level. The bill, one of Democratic President Joe Biden's top legislative priorities, passed the House during Biden's first 2 years in office when Democrats controlled the chamber, but it never had a chance of attracting enough Republican senators to reach the 60 votes required to avoid a filibuster in the Senate. They could have got rid of the filibuster. I don't want to sit here and play like there was no way to get the PRO Act passed. It's one of those things where it's nice to say I'm all about the PRO Act, but again, when the rubber meets the road, you either find excuses for why things cannot happen, or you make a way for things to happen. You're either a can't-do person or a can-do person. And people tend to find ways to do the things that they want to do when they want to be a can-do person. But if it's something that they don't want to do, they're always a can't-do type of person. Chavez DeRemer also co-sponsored another piece of legislation that would protect public sector workers from having their Social Security benefits docked because of government pension benefits. That proposal also has lingered for a lack of GOP support. Some labor leaders remain skeptical of Trump's agenda. Chavez DeRemer may give labor plenty to like, but union leaders are not necessarily cheering yet. Many of them still do not trust Trump. The president-elect certainly has styled himself as a friend of the working class. His bond with blue-collar, non-college educated Americans is a core part of his political identity and helped him chip away at Democrats' historical electoral advantage in households with unionized workers. I'm an evidence-based person. I kind of form my opinions based on evidence, and I still don't understand how he's able to posture in the way that he does to have unionized workers support him. But that's the world we are in, and it's for us to learn how to understand how those things happen. But he was also the president who chose business-friendly appointees to the National Labor Relations Board during his 17 to 21 term, and generally has backed policies that would make it harder for workers to unionize. He criticized union bosses on the campaign trail and at one point suggested members of the United Auto Workers should not pay their dues. His administration did expand overtime eligibility rules, but not nearly as much as Democrats wanted, and a Trump-appointed judge has since struck down the Biden administration's more generous overtime rules. And though Trump distanced himself from the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 during the campaign, he has since his victory warmed to some of the people involved in that conservative blueprint that, broadly speaking, would tilt power in the workplace even more towards employers and corporations. Among other ideas, the plan also would curb enforcement of workplace safety regulations. After Trump's announcement Friday, National Education Association President Becky Pringle lauded Chavez DeRemer's House record but sounded a note of caution. Educators and working families across the nation will be watching as she moves through the confirmation process, Pringle said in a statement, and hoped to hear a pledge from her to continue to stand up for workers and students as her record suggests, and not blind loyalty to the Project 2025 agenda. AFL-CIO President Liz Shuler praised Chavez DeRemer's pro-labor record in Congress, but said it remains to be seen what she will be permitted to do as Secretary of Labor in an administration with a dramatically anti-worker agenda. The Labor Department could be in the spotlight in a billionaire-heavy cabinet. Labor is another executive department that often operates away from the spotlight. But Trump's emphasis on the working class could intensify attention on the department, especially in an administration replete with tremendously wealthy leaders, including the president-elect. Trump took implicit aim at the department's historically uncontroversial role of maintaining labor statistics, arguing that Biden's administration manipulated calculations of unemployment and the workforce. If she is confirmed, Chavez DeRemer could find herself standing between the nonpartisan bureaucrats at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and a president with strong opinions about government stats and what they say about the state of the economy and the White House's stewardship. Her handling of overtime rules would also be scrutinized, and she could find herself pulled into whatever becomes of Trump's promise to launch the largest deportation force in U.S. history, potentially pitting Trump's administration against economic sectors and companies that depend heavily on immigrant labor. Chavez DeRemer would add diversity to the cabinet room, as she was the first Republican woman elected to Congress from Oregon. She also joins Secretary of State designate Marco Rubio, the Florida senator, as the second Latino pick for Trump's second cabinet. Trump's first labor secretary, Alexander Acosta, was also Latino. That's what I got for you in this article about the new pick. Now, there's reasons to be cautiously optimistic, but again, you got to take things with the totality of what's already been suggested and appointed. And so his cabinet is a large contingent of billionaires, and that doesn't bode well for working people. However, his pick for the Department of Labor was a good one for working people. So we got to be honest in how we interpret information, how we take it in, and we got to be honest about reality and facts. And right now, it was a good pick for the Department of Labor. I hope that she's able to operate and isn't handcuffed. We'll see what happens after January 20 when everything starts to become practical reality. All right. My name's Eric. You're watching Union Minded. Remember that the fight's not left and right. It's up and down. It's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one, teach one. Get out there and reach one. And remember, there could be no union without you and I front and center. Peace.